I'm telling you, you can start doing it today so that the next 2 years will be drastically different than the last 2. And anybody who wishes to do that can. And you can do it between ages 40 and 43. You can do it between ages 13 and 50. Any 2 years, any 5 years that you wish to drastically change from the previous 5, you can do it. Here's what it's called, opportunity. But if you don't know you can change, some people then go year after year after year after year not making much change simply because they didn't get to the class. They never read the book. They never went to the seminar. They didn't seek for the knowledge of how could I make my life better. Anybody can live any way they choose, but I'm here to tell all of you that if you wish to, it's possible to make the next 3 years totally different than the last 3. And all you have to do is just a few things. So if you got that one now, it's not the blowing of the wind that determines your income. It's not the blowing of the wind that determines your fortune. It's the set of the sail. And that's why we gathered here today. Maybe I've got some ideas that'll help you with a couple of little things about setting the sail that might drastically give you multiplied more benefit the next 3 years than you've gotten in the last 3. So it's not what happens. What happens happens to everybody. The next season after fall is, I promise you that's not going to change. After day comes night. I promise you that's not going to change. Here's how the last 6,000 years reads. Opportunity mixed with difficulty. And if we're around another 6,000 years, it's going to read like that looks like for the next 6,000 years. Opportunity mixed with difficulty. Now, sometimes there seems to be more opportunity than difficulty, and then sometimes there seems to be more difficulty than opportunity, but the mix isn't going to change. After expansion comes recession. But after recession comes expansion. Not to think so, see, is naive. And once you've got just a little of this stuff settled, then you know exactly what to do. You know exactly what to anticipate, so you can be ready. Now, here's the next one, and I heard it in my invitation. Here's what it says. For things to change, you have to change. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. Once I understood this altered the course of my life. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills. You don't need less problems. You simply need more skills. Don't wish for less challenge. Wish for more wisdom. Accept the challenge, because you can't grow without a challenge. You can't get rich without a challenge. You can't fly without gravity. You have to understand the challenge. But that's the key, is to now develop wisdom to overcome the challenge. Don't wish for less challenge, but more wisdom. You can do the most remarkable things no matter what happens. If you do something often enough, a ratio will appear. Key phrase, if you do something often enough, a ratio will appear. It's amazing. It's uncanny. If you talk to 10 people, one says yes. Now the ratio has begun. 1 out of 10. Talk to 10, get 1. Here's something interesting about the law of averages. Once it starts, it tends to continue. This is colossal information. If you talk to 10 and get 1, sure enough, chances are excellent. If you talk to 10 more, you'll get another. Talk to 10 more, you'll get another. Now you can compete. If you can only get 1 out of 10, you can compete even with somebody that can get 9 out of 10. If you've been here a long time, you can get 9 out of 10. I just joined, I can only get 1 out of 10. If we have a 30-day contest, I will beat you. Say, well, how could you beat me? Here's why. During that 30 days, you talk to 10 and get 9. I talk to 100 and get 10. And I do it for 2 reasons. I sincerely wish to win. But I do it for another very sincere reason. I wish for you to lose. And that's noble on my part. Here's why it's noble. You learn more by losing than you do by winning. So I wish to give you that experience. Now, here's how I do it once I understand the law of averages. When I'm new, I make up in. That's how come they learn so much. They're fascinated. And here's another little clue I've learned. Turn frustration into fascination if you can. You'll learn more. I've worked on this. I'm pretty good at it. Out in Los Angeles, I'm on the freeway. The traffic is moving not 1 inch. I am now fascinated. It doesn't work every time. That's true, but every time it does work, I'm telling you, you'll come away with more. Learn to be fascinated instead of frustrated if you possibly can. Turn that little scenario on for yourself. Sensitivity training is so important. People not like you, people that have got challenges and problems and difficulties, you got to do your best to be sensitive to other people, where they find themselves, the pit they might be in currently, what's going on. Be sensitive to that. If you really want to communicate well, you got to be touched and moved. Not just by your own drama of life, but by the drama you know is going on in other people's lives. Sensitivity. How does an adult 40 talk to a child who's 12? You got to be sensitive, not just to your current situation. One of the best ways to identify with a child who's 12 and you're 40 is remember when you were 12. Go back, remember the scenario, let it hit you again, let it touch you again. If I heard it once, I heard it 100 times. Of course you can't go, you're not a teenager. Wow, I can't wait for this year to be finished. Remember, that's part of sensitivity, remember. There are a lot that I've tried to share with you today called personal development. Here's why I think just a few words could be dynamic in affecting someone else's life. A child, a business colleague, a sales client. Next, vocabulary. Got to work on your vocabulary. Some of my friends took a survey among prisoners working on some rehabilitation program. They weren't particularly looking for this, but here's what they found. There's definitely a relationship between vocabulary and behavior. And here's what they found out. The more limited the vocabulary, the more tendency to poor behavior. And when you think about it for a while, it makes sense. Words are a way of seeing. And if you don't have a good vocabulary, you can't see very well. Can you imagine the mistakes in judgment when you can't see very well? Next, words are a way of expressing what's going on in your head, what's going on in your heart. What if you can't see well and you can't express well? You can imagine the tragic scenario of 5 years of that, 10 years of that, 20 years of that showing no improvement. Behavior now becomes a major problem. And that person's world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Why? They can't see and they can't express. And finally, they don't need much bigger place than a 10 by 12 cell. Their world is so small anyway, don't need much bigger place. I'm asking you to stretch your vocabulary. I used to put words up on a 3 by 5 card. I drove a lot back in those days, but at the end of the day, I'd mastered 2 or 3 words. My oldest daughter, Linda, starts the day with what's called the word for the day. She writes it on a chalkboard, the word for the day. And the kids memorize that word and the meaning of the word. And every once in a while during the day, she'll say, what's the word for the day? The last day I was there, the word was superficial. Natalie's 4, Nathaniel's 5. And several times during that day, Linda, my daughter, would say, what's the word for the day? Natalie would say superficial. And she would say, Nathaniel, what does that mean? On the surface. Several times during the day, what's the word for the day? Superficial. What does it mean? On the surface. If you were to ask my grandkids, the last time Grandpa was here, what was the word for the day? I'll bet you they'd probably know. Superficial. On the surface. Why not learn a word a day? Why not add to your vocabulary so you can see more, see better, and express better? Put out in words what's in your heart, what's in your soul, what's in your mind. So say it well. Here's number 3. Number 1 was have something good to say. Number 2, say it well. Here's number 3. Read your audience. These are just simple concepts now. You got to add some of the details, but that's what I'm mainly good for, is concepts. Read your audience. If you're talking to a child, you got to study the face of the child. You got to study a little body language. You got to study what's going on. So you'll know whether to shift gears, come on a little stronger, ease off a little, might be too strong, search for another illustration, soft, strong. When I first started lecturing, I had some challenges here. I didn't know what was going on down here. I didn't know what was going on over here. Whether I should come on a little stronger, ease back. I didn't know. I couldn't read my audience. So read your audience. A prospect, read. Now let me give you some ways to read. Number 1, by what you see. Body language tells us some things. How to shift gears, whether to go on, whether to stop. Guy's got his arms folded, chin tucked down. You got your work cut out for you. You're going to have to reach deep in your bag. Find some extraordinary stories. This one's not going to be easy. What tells you that? Reading what you see. Read what you hear. You've got to read a child's impatience. Kids don't mind telling you whether they're bored or impatient. Kids' attention span is short. Doesn't last long. You got to get it said. Listen for the response. Now you'll know whether to shift gears, change your language, find a new illustration, soften, stronger. Read your audience. Read what you see, read what you hear. And here's one of the most important. Read what you feel. Now, women are probably better at this than men when it comes to picking up emotional signals. It takes a little training for a man to pick up those emotional signals that are so important so you don't say the wrong stuff.